Live from the back of Ruth the Realtor's car, it's the Stacking Deeds Show. I'm Ruth the Realtor's part-time mechanic, neighbor Doug, broadcasting live from the trunk of her 1988 Lincoln Town Car. On today's show, let's meet real estate where it is, as is, with top South Carolina real estate pro, Joan Herlong. In our headlines, Business Insider recently ran a list of real estate investment trusts that you may want to consider selling if you own them. We'll dive into when and why it makes sense to sell your shares, but what about your actual tangible property? You know, the kind with real dirt and functioning doors? We'll wade into how to think about selling your property. Plus, we'll answer a question from a deeder, and I'll share an amazing trivia question during today's Property Pop Quiz segment. And that'll be like the cherry on top of this whole shindig. And now, two people who aren't really the cherry, more like the Abbott and Costello of the real estate world, Crystal Hammond and Joe Saul-Sehi.
Well, hello, Joe. I feel like I don't get a cool sounding name. He really says your name so cool.
Could I go like Crystal?
Hammond.
Ham and cheese.
Yes.
Fun fact, I've never seen an episode of Abbott and Costello.
Well, you know what's funny, Crystal, is you're complaining about the way Doug didn't say your name, but he called us Abbott and Costello.
And fun fact, I've never even seen an episode of Abbott and Costello. So
you're far too young for that, of course.
Joe, you are Costello.
Oh, my God. We got to get moving. We got Joan Herlong here, Crystal. She is one of South Carolina's finest realtors. She's going to talk to people that listen to the show that are thinking about being pros, or they are real estate pros and want to be better pros. And even if you're not, we're going to talk about how to interface with the pros around you to make better decisions.
I'm definitely looking forward to that conversation.
You were a real estate pro at one point, weren't you?
Yes. I don't know how I forgot that. In Chicago, I was a realtor, and my friend and I, she had her own brokerage, because in Illinois, you do not have to be a realtor for a year before you get your own brokership. So you can become a realtor and be your own broker in no time. But we're your mentors then. You're not going to learn anything from anyone. So
it sounds like you guys learned that lesson.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Now defunct. We were Choice Chicago Realty. That was a cute name.
Look at that. Yeah, that's cool. Was it fun?
Oh, yes. I really loved it. There were some clients that thought you wanted to spend your Saturday just driving them around town, but you really got a chance to help people. I met a lot of great people, though, in the industry.
That's fabulous. Why did you stop?
I moved to D.C. and I was not getting sales. I needed to pay the bills. Again, going back to mentor. Didn't have a mentor.
Yeah. Well, I think we have one today, though, Crystal, for everybody, because Joan, I think, will be a great mentor. Her first piece of advice in her new book, as is don't become a realtor. So that's where we're going to start from. We got that. Doug, you've got a great pop quiz for us later as well, I know.
I'm looking forward to it. It is near and dear to my childhood. Our property pop quiz takes me right back.
A little foreshadowing. But before that, a big headline. So, Crystal, let's go.
Hello, chaps. And now our Stacking Deeds headlines. Cheerio and pip.
Our headline today, I found this morning, Crystal, on Business Insider. And this is about REITs. And a lot of people don't know what REITs are. So maybe I'll take a second and explain those. A REIT is a real estate investment trust. It's a little like, what'd you say, Crystal, like a mutual fund for real estate?
Yep. It's a package of real estate investments, and they are divided into sectors. So you got the healthcare sector. I think that's one of the ones they talk about here. They're just different sectors.
Industrial sector, hospitality sector, office space, all kinds of them. I think now these always have professional management. The good thing about buying a REIT is that you've got this little bit of freedom from worry. You're pretty passive. You just buy the shares like they're stocks, and then you sell them. Doug, I think you've got a family member who runs a REIT, right? Or works in a REIT, works in the REIT world?
She was the CFO for a number of different REITs years ago, and she still is in some ways. Senior care facilities, senior care housing.
It's a big area, big area. So Markets Insider wrote, top 4 real estate stocks you might want to dump this quarter. So I thought, Crystal, this is interesting.
Dump?
I might not own these stocks, but is this kind of a harbinger of things to come? Well, what they talk about here is The most overbought stocks in the real estate sector present an opportunity to go short on these overvalued companies. The RSI is a momentum indicator that day traders use that compares the stock strength on days when prices go up to the strength on days when prices go down. When compared to a stock's price action, it can give traders a better sense of how a stock may perform in the short term. And so they list 4 of them. As you said, one is in healthcare, one is industrial. The other 2 are hotels, which is interesting. Apparently, hotels have been hot. But I look at this, Crystal, and I think, okay, these companies are doing really well. The point of this piece is that they're doing really well. Why do I want to sell these now? Like, I get the short-term trading metrics, like that's all cool, but why do I want to sell these now?
Yeah, I don't think that makes much sense. And fun fact, I was a day trader in Chicago too. Those were about realtor days. And
what haven't you done?
I would love to retire like today with full benefits, after listening to, chatting with the ladies about benefits after you quit. Like, I would love to retire with full benefits. But back to this piece, it's weird that they're saying to sell when these different REITs are doing so well. And people always, it's like, do you try to catch the falling knife or are you trying to get an edge? Because they always talk about edge when you're trading and you want to do something before everyone else does it. I don't see why they're saying to sell while they're doing well, unless you're trying to take profits or something like that. Because prime example of this is Chipotle. Look at how many times people have said Chipotle is too high. It's too high. And it's gone higher and higher. Like, what's the current price of Chipotle right now?
Because apparently Chipotle, because they haven't killed anybody yet, still good.
Yeah, they give you salmonella how often? Quarterly, once a quarter? And they still go up.
That stock just keeps running and running and running.
Runs through you. But that is interesting. Who do you listen to? Do you listen to the market, to these quote unquote experts? I wouldn't listen to the experts, because then that brings us to a point. If things are going well, why would you sell? What are reasons people would sell out of stocks anyway? I know one is because usually they're close to retirement.
I mean, it makes sense if you're at your goal and you need the money to sell. That's a great reason to sell because things are going good. Doug, you're thinking something.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's rare. You could see it on my face, couldn't you? One eye's kind of closed. My lips are quivering. There's a thought. It might come out. Well, but in REITs, REITs are typically focused on specific sectors of real estate, whether it's commercial or it's industrial, or like in my sister-in-law's case, if it was, senior care facilities. And so, I can see how if that specific sector, like commercial real estate, office buildings right now, pretty rough because people don't want to go back to work. And there's a lot of empty office space out there that companies are thinking long and hard about re-upping their leases on because they're having a hard time getting people to even come back and get out of their pajamas. So I can see why some of those bigger specific market trends from REITs would make you consider selling.
I get that too. But you're going to see that on the quarterly results. If they're doing their job and they don't want to get sued, they're going to tell you, hey, we think things in the office sector are going to be a little soft for the next,
that makes sense.
20 years. But listen to this. Lux Urban Hotels, one of these companies they're talking about selling, ticker symbol LUXH, reported better than expected earnings, quote, by continuing to employ a disciplined asset-light growth strategy, strict underwriting criteria, and a commitment to delivering the highest level customer experience. In Q2 2023, we delivered significant quarter-over-quarter increases in net rental revenue, EBITDA, and cash net income, strengthened our financial position, and expanded our operations portfolio to 17 properties under master lease agreements and 1,625 rooms available for rent as of August 8th, 2023. So what they're saying is cleaned up debt, took care of cash flow, added more rooms, but did it in an incredibly disciplined way. Why do I want to sell that management team? Even if things, Doug, to your point, go south for a little while, if I need the money 20 years from now, it's hard as hell to find good managers. You know, if these guys are running a kick-ass product, why wouldn't I hold on to them?
Funny, what stuck out to me as you were reading that was the phrase asset light. And I thought, so somehow they're in the real estate world without actually trying to grow by purchasing real dirt.
There's a cool phrase that I liked back in the go-go days, which this manager that was getting beaten up in 1999, 2000 while the tech stocks were going on. I remember this guy meeting with us, and he ended up surviving, pets.com and all these things, because he employed this strategy called growth at a reasonable price. And as you can imagine, in 1999 and 2000, he got killed because there weren't very many reasonable prices. But that's what it reminded me of, Doug, was that they're like, hey, we're going to try to keep a tight ship, be asset light, so we're not weighed down by properties that might kill us, and be a little more nimble.
Yeah. And being asset light, especially now, it appears to help them. So yeah, I feel like the experts sometimes don't know what's happening in, I guess,
well, don't get me wrong.
Life.
Yes. I mean, these properties might go down over the short run, but then I got to redeploy the money. And if I found a great team to manage it, I don't want to jump from, it feels to me, Crystal, like when people jump from sector to sector following what's hot in the broader stock market, right? When they, they're in small companies and then they're in large companies, they're always chasing what's hot now, which means they're always buying stuff that's high and then selling it when it's low. I don't think we want to go there.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. That I still don't understand this advice to sell while it's near its 52-week high also. And does anyone...
That's the reason a lot of day traders will sell. They'll go, well, how much higher can it go? As an example, they say don't hire financial planners when they're young and inexperienced. And I remember when I was young and inexperienced, I was like, no, you should hire me because I'm a hustler. Now I will tell you, shouldn't have hired me when I was in my first 5 years. That was thinking on my end to stay alive. But now I know. I remember advising this woman to sell some of her Apple stock, almost all of her Apple stock, because it had hit a new high. Now, this is back in like 1997.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, and I remember the quote, Crystal. I remember the quote, how much higher could this possibly go?
McDonald's. Same with me and McDonald's. I didn't buy McDonald's because we're like, oh, McDonald's is in competition with itself. There's a McDonald's on every corner. Why would you buy a McDonald's? Yeah. Boy, am I kicking myself for not doing that. Does anyone want to guess how much is one share of Chipotle right now? When we kept saying, how high can it go? This is a prime example. No matter how many salmonella outbreaks, how many shutdowns and restaurant cleanings
Let's start with this. How high was Chipotle 5 years ago?
Let's see. 5 years
Roughly.
ago? Roughly. Let's see. 2023 minus 5 is 2018, right?
Yeah.
All right. So in
math
September,
with a microphone in your face is not your strong suit, huh?
No, it is not. So in September of 2018, we're going to say Chipotle was $985 a share. Okay.
In 18, Doug's shaking his head about something. You're muted, Doug.
Sorry. I'm looking at the 5-year chart right now because, I'm not going to try to do math with the microphone in my face. But it was 488.
It was 488.
488.23 USD.
$488.
What it was at 5 years ago.
2018. Now, back then.
You're saying today it's 980?
No. It's higher than that.
It's 2,000.
Yeah, I got 1,022.
Yeah, 1,900. Well, yeah, $20. Can you imagine saying something is too high? How higher can it go? So
that stock just keeps grunting it out, man.
How? I don't get it. Oh, really? That's funny. Now I get it.
Sorry. I can't.
What is it? Is it the kale? I don't know. What is it? That carries the salmonella.
You lost me at kale. Yeah. No, thanks. I can't think of the last time I was in a Chipotle. But
me neither. No, thanks.
Yeah, but good point. I think you start with what your goal is and then you work backwards from there. Let's pivot here, Crystal. Let's talk about what about your houses, because people are thinking, okay, that's nice for a REIT, but I'm here for brick and mortar advice. Like, when's the best time to sell my house? To sell investment properties. I know we have that information right here in front of us from Bankrate and Zillow. They say, if you want to sell quickly, list your home for sale in March. And I'm wondering why March is so fast. Like, I get the rest of what we're going to talk about here. You guys have any ideas why March is so fast?
Right, because it's pre-back to school. Well, it's pre-out of school, but pre-vacation. Maybe they want to get a hold of people's vacation money before spring break.
And this, by the way, is North America specific. If you're listening to us someplace else, I know the different markets work it other ways, but
people want to move when their kids are not in school and help with the transition to a new place.
Yeah, so why do I sell it quickly? Maybe it's, you know what I'm going to guess is low inventory in March. I'm going to bet there's not a lot of inventory. I mean, in Michigan, you know, the grass is not yet green. You've got remnants of snow sometimes. It's generally ugly time of year to try to sell your house. I remember putting a house on the market once during that, and there's, you know, no leaves on the trees. It just looked horrible. Like my front yard looked rotten.
It's rough in the north in March and early April. Pretty rough up here.
Well, maybe, but it takes between 60 to 90 days to close. So by the time you're closing, the weather is better. Maybe they're preparing themselves for that and then to pick up their next property.
I bet that's the case. I bet March is low inventory. Yep. Nobody's selling. So
beat the rush.
Right now it's all low inventory, no matter what the month is.
Absolutely. Well, they say though, Doug, if you want to maximize your profit, list it in July. That one's easy. July is kind of the end of the buying season. You got families that want to get situated before the school year starts and they're running out of time. So they are much more likely to pay a premium in July. That one makes sense. It also says here late spring, early summer, generally the best times to sell a house. May, June, July, and April are the highest earning months for selling a house, according to Bankrate and Zillow.
And notice it all has to do with weather also, because that's when the weather is breaking, just like in the construction world. There's no shovels going in ground, you know, late October or October, September, November, December, January, February.
This is why it makes sense, Crystal, too, to pay attention to your local market, because I'm thinking in more retirement communities, these are going to be different. I mean, these months are not going to hold in a place like, what's the big STD community in Central Florida?
Oh, in Florida. The
villages. The villages.
Did you say STD community?
I did say STD community.
Wow.
Yes.
You haven't seen those statistics, Doug?
Oh, I can imagine. I can fill in the blanks on this one.
It's a lot of fun being had in the villages.
There's also an enormous spike in marijuana and CBD use in the villages. It's the fastest growing market segment for weed are seniors.
That's funny for weed and STDs.
Yes. Can't imagine those two going together.
Sex, drugs, and alcohol. There it is.
I know, right?
It's crazy in those places. It really is. We're laughing, but they're all like, what do we got to lose?
Yeah, that's when life begins.
Yeah, I lived conservatively. My kids were looking at me. Now I'm down here. I'm like, shit, why not? Let's go.
Well, coming up next, Joan Herlong's experience selling real estate in upstate South Carolina is unmatched. This woman is not only one of the top realtors in South Carolina, she's one of the top real estate people in the country. She's going to talk to us about what it means to be a pro and give us some stories from the front lines of being a pro who knows how to make the sale happen. But before that, I think, Doug, you've got a pop quiz for everybody.
Sure do. Hey there, Dieters. I'm Ruth's wrench-wielding repair guru, Neighbor Doug. Well, all the way back in 1969, a show about a guy in real estate and his family debuted on ABC, and it would become a cultural touchstone that people still reference today. The Brady Bunch featured Robert Reed and Florence Henderson as a couple of single, widowed people who get married and combine families. Mr. Brady's work in real estate never really figured much into the themes of the show, but it sure can figure into ours. What was Mike Brady's profession? I'll be back with the answer right after I figure out how to open a can of pork and beans while locked in a trunk. Seriously, I think by now we could get a little more space around here for the important people. Hey there, Dieters. I'm lower GI tract tester and pull my finger joker, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Actually, I'm not sure about that last one. It's totally no fun to pull your own finger when you're jammed into a space the size of a large army crate. Sure, you can start laughing at first, but a few minutes later, you will notice the error in your planning. I've made a horrible mistake. One show that nobody planned on having a long run was the Brady Bunch, the story of a man named Brady who had 3 boys and a woman with 3 daughters who got married and lived in the most beautiful mid-century modern house. Mike Brady must have made a lot of money to afford their live-in maid and 6 kids. Seriously, we can't even afford a recording studio or chairs. And there's only 3 of us. How hard is this? So here was the question. What was Mike Brady's profession? He held a job where he could maybe help create houses as cool as the Brady Bunch house. He was an architect. And now, to help you become a better architect of your real estate empire, say hello to Joan Herlong.
Crystal, look, we've got today's guest, I think, standing next to the road.
Ooh, Joan Herlong. I think I've seen her face on a bench.
That would be me walking the street.
There we go. Come on.
I don't know how Joan has time to walk on the street. Scoot over, Crystal, so Joan can get in.
I'm scooting.
Yes,
come on in.
Absolutely. Joan, we wanted you on the show because we heard you were a TV star. You have some time apparently on HGTV.
Oh, yeah. I did that in all of my spare time. That was a few years ago. I had a starring cameo role, which I know is oxymoronic, when my daughter and son-in-law were on HGTV House Hunters.
Yes.
And it was everything I expected it to be.
What did you expect it to be?
Well, I had very low expectations because and I realize a lot of people love that show and they watch it like it's their job, including my daughter and son-in-law. And they had been living with us for 7.5 months. And it was in my house a lot, like every time I came home. And they're like, oh, let's watch this episode, which is kind of a busman's holiday. When I have to deal with real estate all day, the last thing I want to come home and do is sit there and watch real estate. I was like, does anybody have a sharp stick? Because that might be the better option in my ear. But it was an interesting project in that I got to see how the sausage was made. Okay. And the unfortunate side of it is that I think shows like House Hunters and a lot of the things on HGTV lead people to believe in and build these myths that real estate is easy and that it's fun and that it's all about pretty houses and nice people.
Everything goes your way on TV, right?
Yes, and that everybody gets a happy ending and everybody only looks at 3 homes. I wish it were that way. I wish.
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
For it to be called reality TV is truly ironic.
We need a real estate Mythbusters show.
Right.
That's what we need.
Right.
You know, the thing that I really liked from this second chapter of the book was the fact that you bring out that most of the people that are involved to make this a successful transaction for everybody is the job of the realtor to marshal all these people. There's so many people that don't make HGTV who make this a reality. And your job is to leave nothing to chance, make sure all of this goes swimmingly. And that was left off. Like your everyday work really doesn't appear on the show.
Absolutely. You know, a good realtor is going to be somebody who has an arsenal, a whole army of people behind them that they work with on a consistent basis, that you're trading on their trust and their confidence in them. And that show and shows like it make it look like it's just one person doing one thing, and it's really kind of the top of a pyramid. So that's why when you have a new player involved, like the buyer says, well, I want to use Joe Schmo from my credit union back in Spokane, and you don't have a relationship with Joe Schmo, and Joe Schmo really isn't going to have a relationship even with your buyer anymore. It's hard to get everybody singing from the same sheet music.
That could be so frustrating. Well, and you even outline a lot of the frustration that you have with that sometimes in some great stories in the book. But let's talk about this. Young people today are told, follow your passion, follow what you're passionate about. You open up this entire project by saying, I'm not passionate about real estate. No. And my love of people really went away really quickly when I found out some of the people I had to work with. Talk about young people and following your passion versus what you did.
Well, you know, I still have a passion for helping people solve problems and being useful to them in a big decision-making process. But if your passion is, I really like houses and I really just love people, that is not a sustainable passion, because you see a lot of sides of people that you don't want to see in this business. And most people are good people. They are. but there are a lot of bad apples out there. And, you know, true integrity is priceless, but false integrity is worth about 3% to most people. And you get your feelings hurt and you get bruised a lot. So if you're going into this business as something other than a business, you're going to get heavily bruised. And that's really why most agents tend to wash out in less than a year, because they have this pie in the sky attitude of, oh, this is going to be a lot of fun. The business is going to come easily to me and I'm going to make a lot of money. And I think I say this in the book. To be successful at anything, you have to be reasonably smart. You have to be reasonably good with people, and you have to work your ass off. And that third option is not optional. It's just not. When I talk about being reasonably smart, you have to know how smart you are not. You have to know what you know, and you have to know what you don't know. Like, I'm a complete spaz when it comes to electronics like this. So if I didn't have my helper, as in Jack, this interview wouldn't be happening. I know what I don't know. And so I surround myself with people who can fill those gaps, and I pay them well to fill those gaps. You can't be everything to everybody. So if you stay in your lane, know what you know, and get really good at what you know, and compensate others for helping you bridge the gap where you're not so great, you're going to be successful in any business. But there's no such thing as easy money, and it's certainly not true of real estate.
But I don't think that's just internally, Joan. Isn't that also externally? Like, find good bankers to work with, good lenders you can refer. Like, people look at these people that you refer to your clients, and they're an extension of you, even though you can't control everything these people you refer do.
That's true. But I've been in the business long enough that, you know, Jay is my preferred lender. And I have tried to get him to put on the back of his business card, "I don't screw up." And he's like, I don't think that'd be a really good slogan. But that's why I recommend him. That's why I refer clients to him, because he doesn't screw up. I don't have to lie awake at night worrying about whether the loan that I've given to Jay is going to close, because I know he lies awake at night doing that. I lie awake at night worrying about other things. So I don't care what kind of car they drive or what their rates are or anything like that. Is your work ethic a match for my own? Because I'm pretty exacting, but I don't expect anything of others that I don't expect of myself.
Well, that's a good one. Yeah, you stole the words out of my mouth. That's the quote I was going to quote, was to be successful. Like, you really have to be reasonably smart, reasonably good with people, and then work your Joe Schmo off. But another quote that I really loved that you said was, the truth about this business is what we've been talking about too, is that you don't make it alone. You make it because other generous people help you get there. And so talk about like building your generous people. And it's not just generous Joe Schmoes. Now I'm stuck on Joe Schmo.
I will tell you, and I mentioned this in the book.
Good people.
When I sold my first house, when I got it under contract, and I had been in the business for less than 2 weeks, I was so excited, but I was also terrified. I knew what I didn't know. And so I had to find out, you know, a closing attorney, and I contacted the closing attorney. And one of the secrets in this business is that any closing attorney is really only as effective as their paralegals. So if you find a paralegal who is friendly and forthcoming and organized and a good communicator, that's somebody you want to do a lot of business with. Whereas if you have one who's imperious and officious and will return your call when they feel like it, that's not somebody you want to deal with. So somebody recommended this closing attorney to me, but they said, no, what you really want to do is make their paralegal your BFF. And I did. I called her and I said, look, this is my first deal ever. And if you help me keep this a secret from my buyer, I will send you all the business that I can. And she was like, you got it. And I also plagued my broker in charge with, what do I do now questions. What do I do now? What now? What now? What now? But I was reasonably intelligent enough that I didn't have to ask him the same question twice. Mm-hmm. I am coachable. And that's what I look for in my associates in this company. Are you coachable? Do I have to tell you the same thing 3 times, or you get it once? So when that first deal closed, I was going to go back to that closing attorney and that paralegal with all my follow-up deals. And there were other follow-up deals, because when you establish yourself as someone in your company who can follow up on and close leads, they want to give you more of those. But I bought into the myth that I've got 4 kids and I can do this part-time, because most people do. But after about 6 weeks, I went back to my broker in charge and I said, I can't do this part-time. This is ridiculous. And he said, no, you can't. But that's a you thing. But most people in this business are part-time. And there's nothing wrong with that unless you wind up with one of them.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was going to ask you next is, can you truly do this part-time?
In my opinion, no, you can't do it well part-time. But there was some statistic recently that came out of the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, that said that 1/4 of the commissions in a given year are paid to strictly part-timers who are only doing 1 or 2 transactions a year. So that means that 1/4 of the people out there dealing with realtors are dealing with people who are pursuing it as a hobby. And maybe that's why our industry tends to be held in low regard. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was a financial planner for 16 years, Joan, and I could always tell when I'd walk into a financial planner's office from the secretary, talking about the paralegal, I could tell from the secretary what type of advisor the advisor was. If the secretary didn't pay attention to the clients, was worried about her own stuff, you felt like you were bothering him or her all the time, that came straight from the boss. That was the way the boss acted. If the secretary out front, if she or he was welcoming and into the clients and remembered their kids' names and was into it, well, that was probably the advisor people wanted. You're right. You can't do that part-time. The feeling I got as I went through this project was that you almost see yourself as like your client is a rock star and you're the agent of this rock star, like whatever it is that it takes to make sure that this rock star gets not just what they ask for from you, but gets this blunt advice that's going to help their career that nobody else wants to give them. I got to tell the rock star they don't look good in those pants on stage.
Right. It's like having a really loyal sister when you say, does this skirt make my butt look big? And your sister's like, it's not the skirt.
My sister says that to me all the time, by the way, Joan, all the time.
No, if you're not there to give candid advice, then you're literally just a doorman and you're not adding anything to the transaction, to the experience. You're just along for the ride. You're more of a sycophant than an advisor. And that's not a role that I'm good at. I'm there to help them make, that's my mantra, a fully informed decision. And sometimes that information is data that they wish wasn't true, wish wasn't there, but I would be remiss if they were unaware of it.
Well, it only makes the transaction happen if they know. In fact, let's personify this a little. I want to ask you just a couple of questions about working with sellers and then just a couple about working with buyers. There's so much that you have here. But let's talk about Mr. Stone as an example of working with a seller, because I think the Mr. Stone story, Joan, really brings to life what a good realtor does to get somebody over the hump and get their house sold.
Yes. And, Mr. Stone started out as sort of a distant acquaintance, a friend of a friend of a friend, somebody that I knew in the neighborhood. And he became a dear friend because I told him the truth. And the truth was tough. It's like, dude, you are camping out in this house and this looks like Ted Kaczynski's bathroom. This is terrible. And that sounds kind of mean. It does. But that was the reason. It's hard to quantify weird or sad, but the market eventually does. And when you have the capacity to address weird or sad, but nobody gives you the information that you need to address that, then you're really doing that person a disservice. But his response when I was like, dude, this is really bad, this is really sad, and this is really weird, he wasn't mad at me at all, but he was very upset that he had gone through 2 other listing cycles with 2 other companies. And he was like, why didn't anybody tell me? Why didn't anybody tell me? And all I can say in their defense is a lot of people don't want to be the bearer of bad news. And it's not like I relish it, but I do relish helping people solve problems. And it wasn't easy, but it was a solvable problem.
How did he take it, by the way, before Crystal, we get to your question, when you gave him the blunt advice that he's got to make it less sad?
He said, okay, well, what do we do? Where am I supposed to get furniture? How am I supposed to do this? It was not wah, wah, wah. There was no argument. It was just, okay, what do I do next? And so I staged it. I staged it soup to nuts and made it look like it was a happy family. Now, we didn't have to stage the kids' bedrooms upstairs or anything like that because they had not been stripped. And it was also an awkward thing because his ex was the one who had taken the furniture and had enlisted their kids' help to do it. But he never lost sight of the fact that that was their mom, and he didn't want to throw her under the bus to them, as in, you helped mom do a bad thing. Instead, we just staged it that, you know, I was this weird lady that wanted them to have more furniture, and it was my furniture, and therefore they had to stay off of it. But I mean, he was doing the best that he could under the circumstances, but there are some personal situations, some divorces that are just literally radioactive. Mm-hmm. And you don't know if you're going to say something to that spouse that's going to get repeated to the other one. And I wasn't talking about the other spouse. I was talking about, this is weird, this is sad. And when people walk into your house, they are only going to say one thing, and that is, what the hell?
No.
How can somebody be camping out in their own home? This is weird. Then they start asking questions about the owner's personal life, and that does not sell houses. What does sell houses is price, marketing, and presentation, or price, preparation, and presentation, if you wanted to use 3 Ps, but whatever. No, he didn't take it on the chin. He was like, good, now I have a game plan. Now I know what to do. There was absolutely no argument. And we were definitely team players in that.
Well, you did make a great point about you hope you're maybe the third listing agent for the houses, because maybe they're realists by now and they're coming to you for advice that they did not get for the previous 2 realtors.
Right. You know, I'm not a Greenville native. I ain't from here. And just a week ago, this guy said to me, he goes, you have a funny accent. And I said, well, I could say the same thing about you. So it's not like I started out with what we call an SOI, a sphere of influence. All I had on my side was hard work and elbow grease. So I wasn't often somebody's first choice or even their second choice, because everybody got friends who are realtors. Yep. But when your friend or acquaintance doesn't deliver, doesn't get the job done, then they start looking around at people who have a real track record. So I didn't mind being, for years and years, I was often the second or the third choice. But you learn so much. You learn so much from frustrated and angry sellers and buyers. You learn so much because I would spend the first 30 minutes listening to, and then this, and then that. And I know what I don't want to do. And that kind of feedback, that negative feedback, is something that you have to always recognize as free consulting.
Oh yeah. Valuable. That's valuable.
Right. And it's not like I go in and say, well, I'm not going to do it like so-and-so. I'm going to say, okay, that's in the past. This is how we're going to move forward together. But a lot of my company policies that I developed over time, like complete client transparency, that was born from listening to countless angry sellers who said, well, that's just the problem. I signed paperwork and then I didn't know what was going on. And the repetitive phrase was, I was left in the dark. And that still happens to people. And
I feel like that, Joan, still every transaction. I feel like the pros around me, I'm like, I really don't know how this works as well as I should. I'm relying on you for this. I feel like I'm pestering the people because they're not communicating with me how it's working. By the way, the majority of the time, Crystal, this is with the mortgage people. The mortgage people in general. I don't know, Joan, if this drives you nuts. This has driven me nuts. And every transaction, I've been doing this long enough to know, hey, there's a bunch of crap you're going to need from me. And the banker looks me in the eye and goes, no, we're good. I'm like, no, I don't think you're good. I think you're going to need a bunch of stuff. And then it's going to be my problem. And literally within 24 hours,
at the last minute,
within 24 hours of the closing, I get the same. And by the way, they don't phrase it as they messed it up. They phrase it as, well, you're not going to be able to close if you don't get this stuff to me. I'm like, I was trying to tell you this 6 weeks ago. Come on. It seems like there's a system. Which, Joan, I mean, we're singing off your song sheet, Joan, that your job is to bring people through this and not get their blood pressure up. I want to ask you, though, about 2 questions about one that contradicts what I hear a lot of people say. A lot of people say that when you're selling a house, make it look like the Pottery Barn, right? Make it look very, very Pottery Barn-ish.
Vanilla.
Yeah, you say no. Tell me about that.
Okay. When you're looking at a house as a buyer, particularly if you're coming in as a newcomer, you're not just looking at the 4 walls. You're looking at their life. And that's why I tell my sellers, if you've got your kids' pictures on the refrigerator, or if you've got your calendar on the refrigerator, and now most refrigerators aren't magnetized because that's kind of a bummer, I don't let them take that down. And I think Krista will back me up on this. This is completely sexist, but it's true. Women look at a few things in other women's homes. And that is, they're going to look at whatever you got on your refrigerator because they want to know what you got going on. And if you've got a calendar up there, they're going to look at your calendar. What are you doing?
So nosy. Yeah.
Yeah, so nosy. But just, what has she got going on?
I love it too. Yeah.
They're also going to look in your refrigerator, and they're going to look in your oven and the microwave. And it's going to be under the guise of, can I just check to see if my turkey's going to fit? But really they want to see, are these people clean? Right. Because if your oven is not clean, you're not clean. Now, I'm not inviting anybody to look in my oven, by the way, but my house is not on the market. The other thing that they look at, that women tend to look at in other women's homes or where a woman lives, is in their closet. They're going to look at their shoes and they're going to look at their handbags. And if they've got really nice handbags, and I don't, but I'll tell you, when I sell my house someday, I'm going to go out and get some Louis Vuittons, and I'm going to go out and get some Manolo shoes.
Yeah.
It's going to look like I am a shoe and handbag store, because women look at that kind of thing. I don't believe in depersonalizing a house. I don't believe in denuding a house. That's different from decluttering, okay? They don't need to see that you have 18 years worth of New York Times stacked in your den behind the Barker lounger. That stuff goes. But I mean, I'll have people take down pictures of breastfeeding and stuff like that. But
yeah, what about bikini pictures all over the house, Joan? How about that?
Oh, God.
I
in the man cave.
That only happened once in 30 years. How ironic is that? But
that was so weird.
Legendary. It was so weird. And it was so funny, but I was trying to make it be not funny and have them, focus on the house. But I completely lost control of that one. That was unbelievable. But yeah, so your house is a reflection of who you are, your personality. Now, one of the things that I do often do, like if it's a divorce and you can tell and you walk in because half the closet is empty and there's one sink that's got all this, stuff, not clutter, but stuff. And there's another sink that's just sitting there empty. That's sad. That's sad. And that's a distraction. You don't want people to look at the hole instead of the donut. So I've actually had one seller who cut her ex-husband's face out of all the photos. I was like, that did not make the book. That's not really a good sales tool. That's more like serial killer type stuff. So let's avoid that. But you want it to be where a happy family lives. So I don't believe in stripping stuff. I had buyers who moved to Greenville from the Chicago area. And she told me that the night before their photographer came, their listing agent's photographer came, she went to Kmart and bought a stack of like 20 white fluffy towels because her listing agent told her that she had to do away with all of her towels and that they all had to be brand new white towels. Well, I have not been doing this that long, but I have never seen any buyers decide for or against a house based on whether their towels are all white and matchy and brand new and fluffy. That's ridiculous. That's make work. That is not advancing your seller's interest. That's stressing your seller out. Mm-hmm. And look at it this way. If having a vanilla house is important, then why do many builders pay a stager to furnish a house, including, fake pictures and all that, to make it look like somebody lives there? There has to be some sort of a personality, and the personality is the owner's, which is why it's so hard for so many sellers to get negative feedback, because they're putting their house, their lives, their lifestyle out there. So when they get negative feedback, it's very difficult for them not to take it personally. Very difficult.
Yep. Always personal.
Let's talk for a second then about working with buyers. Mm-hmm. What's most important if you're an agent for a buyer?
To make sure that they don't unknowingly overpay. If they want to overpay, that's their business. But you can't just let them love on a house and get carried away by the fact that, there are other people interested in it, or that it's some sort of a feeding frenzy. And you also have to remember that this is not your house. This is not your taste. Does it check your buyer's boxes? And are they getting a fair deal? What's really funny is a lot of buyers, especially if they have young kids, they'll ask, if we're going back a second or third, well, where is Miss Jones' room? Like they think that I'm this woman who's been looking at houses with them. So clearly I'm moving in with them. And yeah, kids make that assumption a lot. And I'm like, no, I don't work that hard. With buyers, it's really, you've got to make sure that they're making a fully informed decision and that they don't get too emotional about it. As I say in the book, you can buy $1 million or $500,000 worth of stock and sleep like a baby. But when you're making a decision to buy a home of that amount, there's a lot of emotion involved and it's very easy to get carried away. That's why I do that hokey thing of asking people to rate a house on a scale of 1 to 10. Because if I let them think that they have bought a 10, they'll pay too much. And then they'll wise up about 2 months after the closing and they'll realize they bought a 7. And whose fault is that going to be? It's going to be my fault. So
you tell a great story about that, about somebody that was moving away, and it was because the agent, they thought, talked them into the house.
Oh,
which ends up being bad
them into it.
It's bad for the agent, it's bad for the client. I mean, how horrible is it when you fail to launch in your new community?
Exactly. And she just felt, I remember that woman, she felt stupid and she felt duped. And she was looking at selling a year later. She should have just rented. She should have taken the community for a test drive. There are ways to do that, and it's called renting. She told me about how that agent had said to her, "This is the first time I've seen you smile all day."
Wow.
I don't say stuff like that to people. I mean, that's really just playing people, you know, it is. With buyers, it's really about, and I will say to them, like, okay, here's a good example. Just last week, went and showed a house that had just come on the market to a young family. It was after work for them. They both work. They brought their little kids. It was chaos. The kids love every house that they see, and they were choosing their bedrooms. And they literally said to me, "We want to call you tonight after we get the kids to bed, and we definitely want to make an offer." Now, if I had been in the business for 5 minutes instead of the dinosaur that I am, I would be like, absolutely. Let's get this done. And I said, "No, I want you to come back and take a second look tomorrow without your kids while they're in school. Let's do it like maybe during your lunch hour, because you're going to see it differently in the light of day." And they said, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let's, can you line up a contractor so we can talk about how to add a garage in the backyard?" And I said, "No, because you can't add a garage in the backyard. There are these things called setbacks and you don't have the clearance on either side." They had no idea. They were just loving on the house because it was really cute. The next day they took a second look and she said to me, "This house is adorable, but it's not the right house for us. And this is why we're working with you, because you didn't let us fly off the handle and make an offer last night. And we've been looking for over a year."
Oh, wow.
But local people have that luxury of, they don't have to feel like they're looking with a gun to their head. It wouldn't be hard to find another agent to say, "Oh yeah, let's make that offer tonight." But you have to do the right thing, even when no one is looking, because eventually your buyer is looking. They're going to wake up at some point.
Well, we talked before you got in the car with us, Joan, just about all
Am
the
I in the
amazing
front
things.
seat, or
we're elbow to elbow back here.
okay, good. Are we Ubering? What's the deal here?
all the amazing things that you've done. And most of that is because of referrals, and you don't get the referral to somebody's friend, to somebody else, if you just do the wrong thing in that one instance. The book is called As Is, An Insider's Guide to Real Estate. We just began. The way that you price properties is so interesting. Being the owner is interesting. So many little details. The fact that in most, I was laughing because you even wrote that in most bathrooms, they'll have these 4 light bulbs and one light bulb's different than the other. And that might not matter to you, but it does to the engineer that's trying to buy your house. It drives them.
Oh, good.
Does it make you look at your bathroom lights more differently now?
Right. Oh, it does.
Yeah.
What's funny is I was a financial planner that worked with a lot of engineers because I have an attention for detail. And I will tell you, if the decimal point's in the wrong place or something's just the little things that I would have to remind these people sometimes, Joan, I'd have to say, that matters, but this isn't going to make you retire, you know?
Right. Right.
You gotta focus.
But you know, from working with engineers, Joe, that there is no detail too small.
Right.
Absolutely.
And when they see a different light bulb,
Yep.
they know, oh, this house is not in order. This house, there's something's amiss here. It's like the Sesame Street song. One of these things are not like the other.
Yeah.
So it's called As Is, An Insider's Guide to Real Estate. And obviously you can tell how much Crystal and I loved it.
Yes.
It's available everywhere today.
Today.
September 26th. It's out today. Yes.
Fantastic. I want to end with one more story. We often hear, Crystal, I don't know if you remember this one, but we always hear, bake cookies or have jelly beans out.
Cinnamon, the smell of cinnamon.
Can we talk about the cookies and jelly beans and how that might not be what you think it is?
That is brutal. Yes. In fact, there's another story about cookies that is not in the book. I was showing a house during lunch hour to a buyer, and the seller had just baked these gorgeous peanut butter cookies. I mean, you could see the heat coming off of them. And my buyer said, "Oh my gosh, that makes me so hungry. I'm dying to eat one." And I said, "Well, let's do it." She goes, No, I don't want to touch their cookies. And I'm like, fine. So I snarf 5.
5.
Okay. 5. I have a sweet tooth. They were really good, fresh out of the oven peanut butter cookies. Okay. Now, mind you, the seller never knows who the buyer is unless it's the upper price range and you have to show verification of funds and all that. Later that afternoon, the listing agent, whose name was Kathy, called me up and she said, "I'm not accusing you or your buyer of anything, but my seller had made a bunch of peanut butter cookies for her daughter's brownie troop meeting this afternoon." And several of them are gone. Now, there have been a couple of showings today. Do you know anything about that? And I said, "I'm pretty sure my buyer did it." And of course, I called my buyer, whose name was Linda, and I said, "By the way, I just totally threw you under the bus, and somebody thinks that you're a peanut butter cookie addict." And she's like, "You're terrible." I said, "But they don't know who you are.
True.
They know who I am, and therefore I cannot be the culprit." So am I always 100% honest?
Joan Herlong, thanks for hanging out with us for a few minutes and making us.
Unless you ate the cookies.
It was for us too. Now get out of our car.
Yes.
Thank you so much for reading. I really appreciate it. And this was a fun conversation.
Right. Yes, you got to get out.
All right, back to street walking.
Bye.
Huge thanks to Joan for joining us in the back of the car. Crystal, let's go back to Doug's pop quiz. Were you a Brady Bunch fan?
Oh, yes. I was a huge fan of the Brady Bunch and the Monkees.
And I never watched the Monkees.
You didn't?
No. Did you watch the Monkees, Doug?
Oh, yeah. In fact, more than likely, they were like back to back on reruns after school or something.
Oh, mine was Brady Bunch at Gilligan's Island.
Yeah,
No,
those two went hand in hand.
Not a Gilliganer.
It's
what?
Islander.
A Gilliganer?
Gilliganer.
A Gill girl.
Gilligirl.
Have you ever tried to do the math on a 3-hour boat tour, by the way? Like I've been now on a few sunset cruisers that go about 3 hours, and you can always see land. Like you never get far enough away. You could go an hour and a half out, between having to go slow out of the marina and, through the harbor, whatever it is. An hour and a half, you're still inside of land.
A storm struck, Joe, and then all hell broke loose. I mean, they could have gotten blown to Greenland. You don't know.
Yeah. Crystal, what happened was they were on a 3-hour tour with these people.
A 3-hour tour.
They get marooned on this island. And then they proved for a number of years that they were a bunch of maroons, to quote Bugs Bunny. And all these people would get stranded on the island with them at the beginning of an episode. And by the end of the episode, the other people would get off the island and they wouldn't.
And then never tell a soul about it. Hey, I was just with these other idiots. How'd you survive? Wily cunning? I don't great hunting skills. So let's go back and talk about Brady Bunch. I mean, I referenced it in the trivia, but I mean, that house was amazing.
So cool.
And what was funny is that maybe a lot of our listeners know this, but the house in real life that they used for the facade and the outside shot, the interior was nothing like what they had in the show. And the house was huge in the show. And so they had I want to say it was HGTV.
Yep.
Bought the house, put a whole show together of most of the child actors helping to rebuild the house so that it matched what you saw on TV.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And it was actually pretty entertaining. I watched most of the first season of it. And in fact, Joe, for some reason, they tried to replicate even the decor. And a couple of the kids, now obviously adults, but a couple of those actors' job was to go find the decor. And they found a number of those pieces at some place in Michigan. They show them driving into Michigan to get like the lamp and a horse that sat on the table underneath the stairs, one that famously broke, I think, during one of the episodes when they were playing. Mom always said, don't play ball in the house.
There it is.
And now it just sold this morning. I saw a headline this morning. It sold for $3.2 million.
Yeah, which was less than what they spent. I think they listed it at $5 million, and it finally sold. So it's been on the market for a long time. But it's funny that they went to Michigan, the land of the antiques. Now there's football season.
Is that what you think of Michigan? You think, yes. Oh man, look at her.
Well, talking to two antiques now.
Oh my God! Wow.
Just kidding.
She just throws Ohio State, antiques, Michigan bashing, just all of. Crystal, where'd the anger come from? It's okay. It's good.
Oh, I know where the anger came from. The last two Michigan-Ohio State games for the last 2 seasons. That's where the anger came from.
And I did bring it up too. I did. That's my fault. That's my fault.
Well, we won't even talk about my Spartan disaster going on right now. It's horrible.
No.
Just, wow. We've got one more segment. We are hoping somebody rings this telephone. Ruth has this satellite phone sitting right here between us. We got the fax machine ready. Nobody's using it, Crystal. People are just writing us letters. Writing us notes.
I'm ringless, and I'm not talking about because I'm single and not married. Ringless because no one's ringing Ruth's rotary.
Wow, that sounds like a cry for help. She's just looking for a way to slide that in.
It's not.
If any of you are listening out there, there's nothing on this finger.
If you'd like to either call in with a real estate question or ask Crystal out,
head to www.stackingdeeds.net/voicemail. There you go. Shoot your shot. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Connor has a question. How can I start with real estate if I have little or no money? This is a great question that our younger listeners, Crystal, have. And I think this starts a few ways. You know, I think number one on our list here to mention to Connor is real estate partnerships. Chad Carson, who was just on the show, he started by going to a big real estate investor and saying, hey, I will work for you and I will put in some of the sweat equity. And so this guy made him a partner. If he would do enough of the sweat equity, he would give him a piece of the upside. And that was his beginning, was partnering with somebody that was a real pro. Some partnerships I think can help you. But even before that, I think you got to make sure also you just have an emergency fund first. If you've got $0, remember that real estate is illiquid. And so you want to have an emergency fund in place before you do anything. But I think that partnership, learning the basics and the sweat equity from a mentor, Crystal, could be a good way to start.
It's priceless. You really can't put a price tag on that in the first place because you want to partner, and we all have something great to bring to the table. Sometimes we're the person with the good credit. Sometimes we're the person that knows the industry. So it's all about partnering with someone who knows more than you or who can complement your situation. So if you know the person that does not have the cash piece, tap into what you do have, your strengths.
Imagine if you had somebody like Joan in your corner when you were a realtor.
Yes. She sold a $9 million home. Like, that would have been an amazing mentor to have in my realtor career. Instead of me having $9 in sales, I could have had $9 million in sales.
Just a couple decimal points difference there. Second on this list are hard money or private money loans. You can find people that do. Now, you're going to pay through the nose and interest, which is why you're going to want to make sure you get your systems together first, because, Crystal, people don't give away money for free.
They don't. And they come with some pretty brutal terms sometimes. But the good news is they can give you your money in like 3 days. I had a hard money loan for pre-construction just to get the ball rolling on one of my projects until I could secure funding or until I can find more people to partner with that had more money to buy out of this, the hard money loan. So hard money loan or private money, there are a lot of private funds also that they look at the deal, not necessarily at you also. So they're really loaning money on how amazing of a deal that you've brought them, not necessarily on you. So that's a good one.
And a place that might even be better when it comes to private money, better and worse, is, of course, family members. family members can maybe help you get started. I really don't like getting involved with that myself. I think family makes Thanksgiving just a horrible time.
Don't recommend.
But you know what's funny though, Crystal? Alan really liked that route.
Yes.
And it's because when it comes down to dollars and cents, and Alan is our old partner, Alan Corey. Alan liked that route because when it comes down to dollars and cents, that's some of the cheapest money you can get.
That is
and
true.
It's money that will forgive you when the project doesn't go
right.
the
You
way.
can push back those deadlines. They're more understanding, I would say. Yes, with the family piece. Friends and family. There are some friends, though, happily partner with, but yeah.
Yeah. By the way, there is a guy who I know who is financially independent, has done a great job of saving money. He said that he has a family, Crystal, that's full of moochers and people that are always asking for help with stuff. So to head them off at the pass, he's never told people how much money he has. Every year he puts on his calendar that he needs to ask them for a loan.
Interesting. I like that.
The reason he asked them for a loan is to make sure they never ask him for money.
That's a good way to not hear back from someone. Ask for money.
They all think he's broke. They're sure he's broke. He's doing just fine.
Wonderful idea.
It is Machiavellian. Third on this is seller financing. We talked to Vicki Barron. Vicki Barron went to a homeowner and said, hey, and the guy gave her these great terms. She ended up having an interest rate of about 3% on this property through this guy. And it was mostly because he wanted to help her. And frankly, that she just asked.
Yeah, definitely listen to that episode 24, because she went to the seller. She's like, look, I love this place. I picture myself living here. How can you help me help you? And that's what it's all about. It's helping. Help me get into this property. Exactly. But I'm not going to say he fell for it, but he went for it just because it was just the way she said it. So you got to learn from these professionals on how to talk and how to get into this property, because, hey, she didn't have the money for it, but she loved the house and she got it.
And how often are we afraid to tell people what we want, what we think? We're like, they'll say no. Yeah.
Yep.
And she said directly to the guy, I remember the quote. She goes, that makes my heart unhappy.
Yeah.
Because
he
I
did
really
say
want to
no.
live in this house.
Right.
Yeah.
He told her no. So you really have to be convincing. And we always say that. Don't tell yourself no, let them tell you no. And then when they say no, you get your why so you can, rebut or keep going.
Joe, help me help you make the show better by sending me a case of scotch.
That is
okay.
There it is. And when I say no, Doug goes, that makes my heart unhappy.
My heart is not pleased with your answer. Why did you have that answer, Joe?
We gave you the pork and beans back there. You should be happy. Fourth is wholesaling. Now, wholesaling is where you find a deal, a great deal, and then you broker it to other people. You become essentially a middleman. Famously, in the movie Moneyball, Billy Beane, the general manager of the Oakland A's, did this, stuck himself in the middle of trades, and would just add a couple $100,000 to his payroll just by getting in the middle of trades he had no business being in the middle of. But wholesaling, if you find a great deal, you can do that. Now, there's a dangerous piece, Crystal, to wholesaling, which is if you find a great deal and you don't have any money, you can sign on the dotted line. But then if the deal goes south, if things go weird, if whatever, you're holding on to property that you can't afford.
Right. But a good thing about wholesaling is that when you're telling people your goals, sometimes these great deals will come to you. So you actually have the discretion to say, you know what? I know somebody that this would be a perfect deal for. That's where you do your wholesale. Or sometimes you're like, all right, let me walk away because I don't have anyone in mind that would love this deal. So you got to get to know that whole process and you and your network.
My son, Nick, had to happen on 2 occasions. Once he got involved with his real estate community in Detroit, he found a deal. He didn't have any funds available at the time, but he knew who did. And so he brokered the deal and got a nice, sweet, very quick several $1,000s.
Wow.
Yeah, not a bad deal.
I'll take it.
Fifth is taking out a home equity loan. This can also be dangerous, but bet on yourself, right?
Exactly. And your home equity is, you have it already sitting there, a lot of times doing nothing, but you will increase your payment per month. But that leverage that you have, you get a lot of money to get into your next deal. And then most people, they rent and repeat. Rinse and repeat.
Well, rent and repeat is good too. Rent and repeat and rinse and repeat.
Rent, repeat.
Obviously, with the home equity loan, you don't want to be upside down. So, do your math twice there. Too many people do optimistic math, and then you end up in a world of hurt. So make sure all of your math on all of your deals is very, very negative and conservative. And then when things go right, Crystal, how great is that?
Do it again. Definitely. We always talk about math. I'm an engineer and I love math. So always do that math, because the appraisal actually keeps you honest also, because they're going to come in and tell you what your property is worth versus what you owe. And that's usually what you get in the difference with your home equity loan. So that way that keeps you honest too, but just make sure you can afford to pay that payment.
Speaking of doing the math, I did the math on this one. Time for our last segment of the day. I know that math when we're ringing the bell that it's time to go, but also I did the math on this. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars somebody gave us on Apple Podcasts, Crystal.
Oh,
ABQ Myler said, so far, great. Just listened to the first episode, really enjoyed it. Things I appreciated, good explanations with lots of details, specific real world experiences, good dynamic between the host, diverse experiences and voices. I enjoy the Stacking Benjamin show, but my main passion is real estate. So I'm really excited for this show.
Oh, ABQ Myler.
Myler, yes.
Myler. I wonder what that stands for. Tell us what that stands for.
Maybe running the mile. Who knows?
What mile? Didn't you run some miles?
I did today. I am hurting. Yeah, time for me to go get a bath. But Crystal, how do people find us? Say hello, and where do they go for the show notes?
All that fun stuff. So I personally write all of the show notes, so you're welcome. No, just kidding.
Brilliantly.
Head to www. I don't even think you need www anymore, but head to stackingdeeds.net/show notes, and then you will get the show notes hand delivered to your inbox after we have an episode each week. And also, if you want to leave us a review, we would love to read your review on air and thank you and prop you on the pedestal like ABQ Myler here. So wherever you're listening, hit that review button. And we like how actually he or she broke down all the things that I appreciated about the show. So thank you for sharing that. We really, really appreciate it. Head to www.stackingdeeds.net/voicemail if you want to tell us also, but we do encourage you to leave reviews. And if you have the questions, then head over to the voicemail so we can hear your voice and the world can hear your voice too, instead of just our voices.
Yeah, we talked earlier about when to get into a REIT, when to get out of a REIT. People love getting in early on the big stuff, right? This is their chance to have a voice to shape the show, right? This is their chance to get in early and be an influencer on how our show develops. So great opportunity.
Speaking of that, if you listen to us specifically on Spotify has a platform now where we can run polls, and we're trying to do that with most shows. So if you listen to us on Spotify, most of the time we'll have a place where we will either have a poll. What do you think about what happened with our main guest? Or we'll just ask you, what do you think about this show? So if you're listening on Spotify, you might even there find yourself somebody that we're commenting on the show later. I think, Crystal, we checked all the boxes, didn't we? Except one.
Yeah.
Got to ask Doug to bring it home, man. What should we have learned today?
Thought you were going to forget, Joe. First, take some advice from Joan Herlong. Thinking of becoming a real estate pro and an investor and keeping a 9-to-5? Maybe not a great idea to try to be everything. You'll find more success if you're more focused, no matter your path. Second, take some advice from our headline. Thinking about selling because the market is high or you think the market's going to go low? You don't know what the market will do, so it's far better to sell based on your goals. But the big lesson? On second thought, this trunk really isn't all that bad. I mean, I've got perfect darkness back here for nap time. That's pretty near and dear to my heart. And if anyone tries to disturb me, I've got this tire iron to remind them not to disturb a guy's beauty sleep. Thanks to Joan Herlong for joining us today. You can find out more about her book, As Is, An Insider's Guide to Real Estate, wherever books are sold. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingdeeds.net.